Hello, everyone. This is a important case review on a matter called Lis Pendens, and it's a case from 2007, but it keeps coming up in our business, and people are very unfamiliar with what a Lis Pendens is, how it works, and how do you use it in a case to protect yourself or to protect your interest. So a Lis Pendens, Lispendens, is Latin for litigation pending. And it's one of the few terms that lawyers still use in Latin, right, that is part of the legal jargon that we have and is actually part of the statute. So litigation pending means if you have a lawsuit regarding real property and you are claiming an interest in that property, but maybe it's not perfected, it's not a mortgage or whatever, but you're saying, wait a minute, I need to collect against this property. I don't want the owner to sell it and me lose out on that proceeds because the case is still going on. So if you're in like a contractor litigation would be most typical, and the owner has got multiple properties and you don't want them to sell it, so what you're doing is creating a cloud on title. It's like a super lien basically against everything they've got that you file the lis pendens on. So what you do, going back in the old common law, there was this idea that if you filed a lawsuit, just by filing a lawsuit, you were putting other people on constructive notice that you might have a claim against that real estate. And then in the late 1800s, as that law developed, Indiana and basically every other state, I'm sure, started writing statutes and putting this into the code and saying, no, here's how we're really going to do it. So now, since the 1800s, the late 1800s, we've had a statute that says if you file a lis pendens with the clerk of the circuit court where the real estate is located, that creates a cloud on title for that real estate. And it puts other people on notice that maybe you have a claim, and if there's that litigation pending, right, that they're seeing the litigation might result in a judgment in your favor that then results in collection, that results in that property being used to pay you, right? So that's kind of a long, string of events to get to payment. But whenever there's real estate, you don't want it to be sold. And if you've got a claim against someone, you don't want them to refinance the property, pull all the equity out, and suddenly you're without a remedy, right? So in the normal contract litigation, if it's a note and mortgage, of course, then you're going to have a mortgage on file. But if it's just straight up a contract dispute between you and it affects that interest in the property, then this is where the lis pendens comes in. So this was this case that I've cited, Clarkson versus Neff, was a case where a family hired a custom home builder to build a house for them, and it, surprise, surprise, went over budget and they didn't build it on time. So they became a lawsuit over, do we get to buy it for the first price? Do we have to pay this overage? Do we not? Whatever. And it was very convoluted, but Mr. Neff, yeah, it is a Mr. Neff, yeah, he ended up buying the house from the builder later as this litigation was pending. And because of the lis pendens that was on file, it became a dispute whether or not he was a true buyer and he owned the property or not. And I'm not going to, it's a really complicated procedural case. I'm going to try to, get it down to the bare basics for you. But basically, the Clarksons filed this lawsuit in one court, and then for crazy reasons, they also filed it in another court, and the first one got dismissed. They filed a lis pendens in the first one incorrectly. They filed the lis pendens in the second case correctly, and then the litigation and the lawsuit in this whole holding in this case said, what do we do with this case where we've got a good lis pendens, a bad lis pendens, the timing is right, blah, blah. Can we combine them into one proper lis pendens for the other lawsuit, or does it get wiped out? And what the court said was this lis pendens was filed 13 days before Mr. Neff bought this property. So he goes under contract, and 13 days before the closing, he then files this lis pendens or buys this property. And as you can imagine, it's difficult for a title company to catch that, and that's maybe what happened. So practically, the court didn't look at that problem. The court just said 13 days earlier, a lis pendens was filed. Therefore, he had notice of this litigation. Therefore, he had notice of the cloud on the title to the property he was buying. Therefore, he's out of luck, right? And that's the bottom line to the whole case. So what I want you to take away from this is a lis pendens is a very powerful tool, but you have to file it correctly. And the way you do it is, no matter where the litigation is pending, you file the lis pendens in the county where the property is located. So quite frequently in Indiana, you know, we're up in Hamilton County, but we practice everywhere. And we might have litigation in Hamilton County, but there's real estate in Marion County or Johnson County or some other place that's affected. And so you need to file that lis pendens in a totally another county from where your litigation is. And so it becomes very important that you file it correctly in the correct circuit court and that you get it on record. And I'll make this a little bit more interesting, that every county handles these a little bit different. The statute's very clear of what is required, but the way the courts and the clerks in these counties do it, it's different everywhere. So you got to kind of overdo it. We even take the step oftentimes of recording our lis pendens. So we notice the court through the circuit court clerk's office, and then we take that notice and record it with the recorder's office, hoping that the title companies, if there's a sale or a refi, are going to catch one of those places. So we try to overdo it. But the statute just says file it with the clerk of the circuit court of the county where the property is located. All right. I hope that helps you understand lis pendens. It's a very powerful tool. If you got a claim that you think it applies on, be certain to give us a buzz. We'd love to work through it with you. Have a great day.